Well, good morning, beautiful souls. Let's have a tiny Sunday sermon and talk about this comment. So, this comment says, "It's wonderful to know that I can do what I please to whomever I please. No guilt is great." So, this was made on a video that I did where I was talking about how freeing it is to release this concept of sin that was taught to us by the religious patriarchy, because that concept of sin is a scam. Because within that framework, it relies heavily on church leadership's interpretation of what sin is. And through that framework, the definition of sin is a violation of God's will. Here's where the problem comes in, because not only is it subjective, it's a moving target. And the very people who are saying that the Bible is infallible and inerrant and never changing, change the definition of sin all the time. For example, for the longest time, many of these churches would say that a preacher can only be a man, but not only is he supposed to be a man, he's supposed to be a man who's only been married once, no divorced men. Well, they started to relax that stance because in order to protect the religious patriarchy, which requires a white Christian man to be at the helm, they needed to make sure that they had enough of those leaders that fell into that category. So guess what? Being divorced for a man was no longer a sin. You then could still qualify to be a pastor. Now, for women, it's a whole other different category, and we don't have time to go into that today. And many of us saw this play out in real time when the Church of England took a very rigid stance against divorce, saying it was a sin. And King Edward had to abdicate in the 30s, yet in 2002 it relaxed its stance in order to make sure that King Charles could ascend to the throne. And I realize that these are overly simplified examples, but it's really important to see how those in power, which are often the white Christian man, will be happy to contort their definition of what a sin is if it benefits them. Speaking directly to user 8272, what this person is implying is that the only way I can be a good person, the only way I learn morals, is my proximity to my religious teachings who taught me what it means to be a good person. But here's the truth, user 8272. Church is not where I was taught to be a good person. Church was where I was taught to be arrogant, to be closed-minded, to be self-entitled, to be a white savior. And I was taught that religious freedom meant that I was free to impose my religious beliefs on you, which is kind of what you're doing here by implying that your religious beliefs are the only way that people can learn what it means to be good. Here's a really good opportunity to invoke the words of the great philosopher Ricky Gervais, and I'm joking. But there is an episode of Afterlife where someone is talking to him about Ricky being an atheist, and his character is an atheist as well. And they say, well, what compels you to just not go out and kill somebody? Why won't you do that? And he said, well, I guess if I wanted to, I could, but I don't, because I'm a good person. I'm not going to do that. And it's obvious what he's saying there. It's not the religion indoctrination that teaches you the moral code. You can be a good person without religion. And in Ricky's case, you can be a good person without spirituality. Now, if you Google sin, what is sin right now? You're going to be flooded with the SEO champions, which are Christianity. So you're going to get these definitions about it being a horrible violation against God's will, breaking God's heart, all these different things that once again points back to the subjectivity of someone interpreting for you what sin is. But for many of us who let go of Google a long time ago and realized that we were going to get slammed with religious indoctrination, we understand this concept of sin is something more meaningful and more insightful and more personal. Now we arrive at, what do I think sin is? And for me, sin is when I turn away from this inner knowing that some people call the soul, some people call the spirit, some people call God. And I'm not here to argue about what those definitions or those experiences are. But when I turn away from that part of me, that is when I deny the sacred elements of who I am and my capacity to be a better version of myself and a commitment to do so. So for me, sin is denying that I am sacred, that I am holy. And when I deny that, I have more capacity to look out into the world and see others in that same light. That's going to influence my actions. That's going to influence my behavior. And when I'm connected to it, then I'm committed to waking up in the morning and being a better version of myself than I was the day before, even if it's just a little bit. It's acknowledging that I matter. And since I am here for just a short while, how can I make this place better because I was in it? So whatever name you have for that, it's all good. It's all holy. It's only when we deny the holiness that's in us and the holiness that's in others that we create this separateness. So I don't need religion to tell me what a sin is or isn't. I can figure that out on my own, and it's reflected in the good we do. Religion taught me how to weaponize my beliefs. Spirituality taught me how to be a good person and understand that I never had the right to gatekeep humanity with my beliefs. This table of humanity is big enough for all of us. So yeah, make it a good Sunday.